Good morning. Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Very good morning. Welcome to Rise Up. Irfan Alamgir.
And today on our set of Rise Up, we have a very special guest, someone we've missed dearly for a while. And she's back.
Yes.
Sister Hadil Al-Khuli. How are you doing, Hadil?
Thank you, Alia. I'm good. Thank you. How are you, Dr. Afan? Good to be
Great
back.
to
so
see
good to
you
have
back.
You guys too. Thank you so much. Good to be back.
I almost feel like a guest myself.
She's been very busy with book fairs.
Hadil, yes. Jet setting and all kinds of activity.
For the dawah. Alhamdulillah, as usual.
Alhamdulillah.
And Hadil, look, we really had to have you today because there has been some latest news regarding Egypt.
Yeah.
And different Ansar actually have been contacting us very disturbed about what has happened. So I think it's good to really go into that and speak to the audience about the details and what's going on right now.
Yes, absolutely. So the Egyptian case is a very big case at the moment. One, because of the number of members that were arrested. So we have 14 members that were arrested. And the second is because of the scope of the targeting of the members. So this was a campaign that was on a nationwide scale. So it wasn't just concentrated on Cairo, but you can imagine. So the Egyptian authorities actually mobilized their resources to scan the whole country, to hunt down members of the faith. So the scale of the persecution is very big. And third, because of the measures of abuse and human rights violations that occurred against the members. So one, you have enforced disappearance. So you have, as was written, members who were literally abducted from their homes without any legal papers for no reason other than, publicly manifesting their faith, having a picture with the leader of the faith, Abu Sadiq, or mentioning the frequency of the satellite channel, which is on TV anyway, on national TV. So it was really insane. So being arbitrarily arrested after that, and for a whole month, or almost 34 days, nobody knew where they were. The families didn't know, the lawyers didn't know. The Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, which was one of the most active organizations in Egypt, had lawyers placed in almost every police station, waiting for their names to appear there, for them to resurface. So they're completely, kept away from public eye. We don't know where they were. And obviously, after the... We knew, of course, they were for sure with national security, and because of that severity of the abuse, Amnesty International, the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights issued a press release, a joint press release together, urging the Egyptian authorities to disclose their whereabouts and stop, of course, the deportation of the Syrian member who was also arrested. After this, they resurfaced and they were taken to the public prosecutor who interrogated them, ordered their detention, and charged them with joining an organization that's established in violation of the law. Nonsense. They're not part of an organization. They are peaceful members who are practicing their faith. When they resurfaced and when they were presented to the public prosecutor, we knew now where they were. The lawyers could now intervene, could talk to them and find out what's happening. And when this initial contact happened, the accounts of torture resurfaced. And the members, they did say that during these 30 days where they were kept away and hidden in the dark, torture techniques were used against them. They were stripped naked, they were electrocuted, they were forced to recant their faith. And they were kept that long to try and hide away any traces of torture so that it doesn't appear that severe when they are taken to the public prosecutor and appear in the prison. That was horrific, and the families we made complaints of torture, complaints to the public prosecutor, and because of that also Amnesty International issued an urgent action. And this is basically not just a nationwide, this is an international campaign for not just the release of the members in a very urgent, so this is like a very urgent case of abuse and violation that requires not just human rights organizations, but really members of the public to immediately put pressure on the Egyptian authorities, one, to release them, but two, to open an investigation for the enforced disappearance, for the cases of torture. And the third request was for all forms of persecution against the members of the faith in Egypt to stop. So this campaign by Amnesty International went international. So there were different amnesty sections around the world that took on the case. And yeah, we can talk more about the different sections, but...
Do you think that this level of pressure will eventually get some level of governmental intervention?
I think so, absolutely. We were just talking earlier, we've seen that happening in Turkey, where we had 104 members of the faith being arrested, and at that time, obviously the UN issued a statement, and eventually the members, they weren't just released, but also they were cleared of any charges, and the Turkish authorities themselves stated that holding them for that period of time had no legal basis. So we know that international pressure does work. And in the Egyptian case, I think also the scope of how international the whole campaign went. So we have different sections. We have Amnesty USA, we have Amnesty Canada, we have Amnesty Germany, we have Amnesty Belgium, we have Amnesty Netherlands. So can you imagine all of these countries are adopting the urgent action, writing it in their own language and asking their members to address the embassy of Egypt in that country.
Wow.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of pressure being put on the government itself through the embassies, and so many people are involved now, involving the members of the public. I think this is incredible.
Yeah.
And it gives everyone a chance to really take part in what's happening. And we have an article as well that was released on Divine Just State magazine. You can go ahead and check it out and see what the details were. This is one of the brothers who was arrested. Sister of detainee provides...
This is Omar.
Okay.
So Omar is one of the members who also, of course, he talked about the cases of torture. He was subjected to torture. And I think we can go into the actual article. I don't know if there's more details.
Okay, so it says there have been significant updates and new developments regarding the persecution of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light community in Egypt. This wave of repression began with a series of targeted arrests in early March. Between 8 and 14th March 2025, Egyptian security forces launched a crackdown on AROPL members following a peaceful event in Giza, where a banner representing the faith was displayed. At least 4 individuals were initially detained, including Hussein Muhammad Al-Tenawi, Omar Mahmoud Abdul Majid, and Hazem Saeed Abdul Mu'tamad. These men were held for weeks, denied access to legal counsel, and subjected to enforced disappearance. Practices that have been strongly condemned by leading international human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, and other human rights groups.
Yeah, so, and you see also there's an escalation on the measures that were taken. So initially, of course, the 2 organizations started with the press release, but I know that they are committed to campaigning on this case so long as the members are in jail. So the escalation after the press release was the urgent action. And as we mentioned, the urgent action was picked up internationally by a large number of different amnesty sections. And the campaigning is continuing. So that commitment in itself, that we will continue campaigning and pressuring and calling on the Egyptian authorities to release them. And of course to stop persecution of all other members of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light in Egypt and any other religious minority that's persecuted. That commitment is there, and not just obviously Amnesty UK, but all the different amnesty sections around the world.
Before we go on to the article, I think just for the sake of everyone listening, Hadil, if you can just explain why is it that this kind of campaign would create that kind of pressure on the government? What is it that makes them start to feel the pressure? Why would they want to listen? Why would they relent because of this kind of international widespread campaign that's going on?
I mean, there's 2 aspects. why is the campaign? Why is there so much global solidarity? Because the insanity of the case. There is no crime.
Absolutely,
there is nothing.
Absolutely.
How can you expose a person to such grave human rights abuses because they put up a poster that has a frequency of the satellite channel that's on your TV in that country?
It's completely insane.
I mean, just think of that. Because I have a picture of the leader of the faith, because I have a hadith that's talking about the companion of Egypt that's in the books that Egyptians talk about, and to abduct them, to torture them, to harass them, to target them. I mean, these are families that are destroyed. I mean, these are children that are without their fathers. These are mothers that haven't seen their. You can imagine all the consequences of destroying like lives of people like that forever.
It's horrifying.
Forever. I mean, imagine how can you resume your life after that? Just like think about all the trauma, the psychological, that in one aspect. And then again, the severity and the Syrian member who got deported. You just deported a member back into like Daesh-controlled, ISIS-controlled Syria. A refugee who is registered with the UNHCR. Yes. It's against international law to send someone back to the country that they escaped from, but that you recognize as a refugee. So you see in that case the scope of violation of international law, of human rights law, of the human rights standards that the Egyptian government itself says we abide by. That's the craziness. So they sign and they join international conventions and commit themselves to these human rights standards. Yeah. So, but if you commit yourself to it, it becomes part of your national law. Then at least guarantee it for the nationals of your own country, of your people. But then they are the first ones, who bear the brunt, who are abused in that way by their own government for absolutely no reason. So of course, that in itself is the reason why they should, of course, listen to the campaign, because these are things that you, Egyptian government, committed yourselves to. You say that freedom of religion and belief is a basic human right. You say in your constitution that freedom of religion and belief is guaranteed to all people of all faith. Well, then, according to your law, your constitution, your international human rights conventions that you ratified into national law, you have to commit to your obligations that you committed yourself to.
Yeah, the madness of the responses really was shocking. Because I think one of the best ways to learn a concept is to study the opposite of it. So if you want to understand wisdom, this is the complete opposite of that. The wild hysteria that is reflected in the decision-making process of the authorities on the ground, in terms of what you said, Hadil, about putting up a poster and then disappearing for over a month without anyone knowing your whereabouts.
Subjected to torture.
And now news breaking through that people are being electrocuted and God knows what else is going on. I mean, this is just the surface that is that we are aware of what's happening. The full extent of it, I guess, will come out in the coming weeks. But it is a very shocking kind of this whole story, and it goes from bad to worse. You said something interesting in the very beginning when you started to detail this whole saga in Egypt. You said that there has been now a national, very sophisticated campaign which essentially is hunting down members of the religion. Now, we know obviously what's been happening in the social media since the death of Pope Francis, but did anything happen in the ground that triggered off such a widespread search for members of the faith on a national scale, where people are going literally looking for believers in the Ahmadi religion of peace and light?
I mean, from the events of the case, we know that it was triggered by in Egypt, and of course we know this wave of persecution, as we read in the article, started in March. So within these, almost 10 days, the events of the case, according to what we know, was triggered by one member putting up a banner on one of the bridges in Giza. Having the, as I mentioned, the frequency of the satellite channel and the image of Abu Sadiq and the name of the satellite channel. When he was arrested, what they did is that they went through his phone, and the members were part of a Telegram group. So then from there, they actually made the effort to find out the names and the whereabouts of all the members of the community.
That's what
And from there, it went on to, as I said, I mean, imagine if you are in Cairo and then people get arrested all the way in Luxor, which is like in the south of the country, like in Upper Egypt. So that means, this is why I was saying that this is a nationwide campaign, and to to go into the phone and now to trace down the names and phone numbers and go and to, I mean, some of them, these were villages, they were living in villages,
and so no doubt approach the family members of the names that they find and do a full kind of a
there are places of work, going into the. I mean, in some cases they went to the families' homes, to the mothers and the fathers, and broke into the house of the parents and held the mother hostage until your son comes. So, I mean, if you think of the details. Ridiculous. It's really, really horrific.
Yeah, there's a statement. It goes, "There's no smoke without a fire." And the reason that I asked this question is because we saw a very similar kind of story play out in Malaysia. And the reason for the very firm action, the heavy-handedness of it all, was because there was a very palpable threat coming from this religion because of equality and human rights and only God appointing the ruler. These are certain concepts that are extremely, they're a big threat to the status quo, to the powers that be.
They can be, yes.
And hearing some of this, although it is completely obscene and horrific, the conditions in Egypt, but it also reveals a truth that now there is a perceptible threat that if this religion and its teachings, because Abu Sadiq is after all Egyptian, there's a very strong connection. So if the companion of Egypt and his teachings spread in that land, there will be big, big problems. And it looks like the authorities have recognized that this religion, this teaching is deeply rooted in Islam, and it's the true message of Muhammad through his holy family, peace be upon them all. And that is why Egypt is really a place you want to keep your eye on. And it was a big part of the initial revolution that happened that ousted the tyrant Mubarak.
Yes.
And I really feel that if this religion and its teachings reach the heartland of Egypt, where there are lots of honest, good, kind of religious people abiding there, and you've always spoken well of your stay in Egypt and the mentality of the people and their generosity, then I think the beginning of the divine gestate may well take root in that land. It's a blessed land. So a very disturbing news from one side, but then it has that amazing opportunity. I think this is the place where the religion can really find a root in the Middle East, and this reaction that we're seeing is because they're scared. They are very, very scared of the message the Qa'im is bringing.
Absolutely, and we know from history the people of Egypt, in their origin, are people who love the Ahlul Bayt, and in the actual culture, in the actual history of Egypt, it was the people that welcomed the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And the Egyptian people are people, if they believe in something, and if they know that, this is the truth from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, nothing would stop them to make sure that, this is the reality that will be from their country. And I think they know that. And I think it's already happening.
Yeah, that just goes to show exactly what you said, Dr. Irfan, that it looks like the powers that be over there are feeling threatened by the truths that are coming forward from Abu Sadiq. So these members, these beloved brothers of ours, the 14 who have been treated so viciously, is there a call to action that we can give to the people for their sake?
Yes, absolutely. So when I was talking about the different amnesty sections, so depending on the country that you're in, there would be on the Amnesty website of your country. They, if you are in any of these specific countries, you can go on the website and you can download this urgent action, which is basically a sample letter. So if you're in the UK, there's a link which is on most of our social media, where there is the Amnesty urgent action on the Ahmadi religion members. And the urgent action, what is it in summary? It's basically inviting people to write letters to the public prosecutor in Egypt and to the Egyptian embassy in their country. So this, for example, is Amnesty International USA. Okay. So here it gives you the steps. So the first step is obviously you read the full urgent action. You just put in your email and your zip code, and then you get the sample letter. Now, the sample letter, this is the important thing. You can use that sample letter, copy paste it, sign it, send it, or you can write your own.
Right.
Yeah. But the sample letter is there to basically help you.
It has all the details in there.
Exactly. Right. It has the address, all of that. Now, after you sign the letter, now you need to send it. Now you send it to two different addresses. One is the public prosecutor Muhammad Shaw'i Ayyad in Egypt, and this one you have to mail. Okay. Now the second one is that you email it, or whichever way, to the Egyptian embassy in your country. Obviously, this, as Amnesty International USA, has given the contact information of the Egyptian embassy in the United States. So, in summary, get the letter, sign it, mail it to the public prosecutor, and contact the Egyptian embassy in your country.
Yeah. Seems pretty straightforward.
Very straightforward and very important. I mean, imagine you can do this and the difference it would make. Perhaps people think that the little they do doesn't have an effect, but I'm sure, especially in your line of work, Adil, you've probably seen that every little counts very, very much, goes very far.
Absolutely. I mean, especially these urgent actions. I mean, we've seen so many people who got out of jail, were reunited with their families because of that solidarity, because of the people coming together, writing these letters. And you know, it's even on the basic level of making the people in jail know that there are people outside who haven't forgotten them and who are thinking about them, and not just thinking about them, but taking action and campaigning for their release. So this is a basic thing that I think these brave members should know and do know. And one of the mothers called me yesterday. She had just visited her son in detention, and she asked me to thank every single one of the members who have, spoken up and defended her son.
Yeah, and you had a very good initiative where everybody gathered here in the community, and we all wrote the letter, hand wrote it. And maybe for those in those countries where there are small communities, you could do the same. It's an exercise where everybody gathers together, and it's almost like there's an energy, there's a divine energy in the place where a few Ansar gather, and we wrote together as a group. And if there are communities around the world, in the US, in the UK, in Canada, these countries,
Philippines,
please get together.
There's a lot of countries where there are quite a few Ansar gathered now, so please get together. It's a very great idea. I think it does make a difference for sure. It was so beautiful that night because you realize that there's a lot of power in numbers, and we do have to make a stance now against this kind of inhumane behavior. We cannot stand for it. We cannot sit idly and let it happen now.
Yeah,
something has to be done, and our prayers and our thoughts are with them and with their blessed families. And thank you so much for joining us today, Adil.
Thank you.
Inshallah, hopefully next time you come, we'll have some good updates, something to give the people some good news. You're working around the clock. We've seen you working around the clock, you and your team. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Alia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We're going to be going to a short break. Please stay tuned and we will be back.